Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Portrais, and I'm joined in studio by Sean Keenan.
Bonesaw's ready. Are you ready, Heidi?
And, of course, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and with great legs comes great, you know where this is going, Sean, great short leg pants.
Oh, they got it in early this time.
For those of you playing along at the HMP drinking game, take one for the team right there. We are reviewing Spider-Man from 2002, the original Sam Rami film, everybody. So sit back and enjoy that. This is one long coming, I think, for this show. We've done a lot of the kind of, going back to the original kind of stuff and delving in there because we've done a lot of new release stuff, and obviously those more coming in the next couple of months. We got, Luke Cage coming up, of course, and Suicide Squads and Doctor Strange, but it's nice to go back in the day.
It's kind of surprising that we haven't done this one yet.
Yeah, as much as, like Spider-Man, Batman, and Superman are pretty much the, highest count of stuff they got out there, amongst all the superhero films for the most part. So, you got to get around to it eventually.
Sometimes I feel like we kind of avoid the obvious ones sometimes, so it's hidden in plain sight. We have to go back and grab some of those obvious ones.
Exactly, and that's what people are kind of looking for in things of that nature. So, before we get to the show, gentlemen, we've got a 5-star review here, a.k.a. Humdinger.
Humdinger?
And it is entitled, Just Plain Fun. This is by Joker's Wild. That's with a Z, by the way. Joker's Wild. He's got to be a big BQ fan, I figure. Great way, a great way to talk about the movies you love / hate and the comic knowledge behind them with a splash of movie guru. And if you are new as I am, there is a great backlog to enjoy. Great work, guys. That is from Joker's Wild. Joker's Wild, thank you for dropping us a 5-star review, a.k.a. Humdinger.
Humdinger.
And if you would like to as well, how about you head on down to the old iTunes there, drop us one of those. It'd be much appreciated and stuff like that. Get the word out there, It's been a while.
And, if you're new, we're proud of our backlog, so go check out our backlog.
That just can almost be dirty.
Almost.
Almost. It's like it was hovering on the inch of like, maybe it's not. I don't really know. Here's one. We got 2 emails today. This one is from Thomas, and Thomas writes as followed. Hello, fellow. Well, he says, hey. He doesn't say hello. I don't want to put words in the guy's mouth.
Don't put words in Thomas's mouth.
All right. So, hey, fellas. My name is Tommy, and I'm a fan of the podcast. I discovered it a few months ago, and I've enjoyed it ever since then. Oh, thank you for that. I just listened to the Batman Begins show, and I'm curious now, what's your favorite film in the Nolan trilogy? I'm guessing Dark Knight. Also, I want to suggest a topic for you guys. Have you considered doing a quote-unquote favorites episode or a top 10 superhero movie episode? I would love to hear your guys' pick, and I think it would be a lot of fun. Let me know what you think. Keep up the great work, Tom. Tommy, thanks for that email, man. Yeah, it's of the Nolans, I'm going to say Dark Knight. I know it sounds like a silly cliche answer, and I know a lot of people are...
It's a cliche for a reason. Yeah. It's one of the greatest movies, period, ever made, not just superhero movie.
And it's sort of a devil's gambit, because you either sound cliche or like you're trying to be a hipster.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, but yeah, where are you Dark Knight Rises people at? There's just like, look, of all of them, Dark Knight Rises is where I go for my... Though Matt on Film Find, he does not like the Dark Knight. He likes the other two better. So, different strokes for different folks, I guess.
I really do like the end to Dark Knight Rises also, where he stumbles into the cave and he goes up on the riser. That's a really cool ending. I like that ending a lot. However, the rest of the movie does not compare to Dark Knight.
What are you talking about, Sean? I'm sorry. Let me get the sock out of my mouth.
Yeah.
Turns out, looks like we got another email too, but I started reading it, and apparently I'm not allowed to. So
you want to read it, Bruce, or you want me to?
You can probably read it more easily, given that you're in the room.
All right, then I will read it. So this email comes from Jake. Jake, thank you for the email. Jake writes, "Hi, Adam, Sean, and Bruce. I would like someone other than Adam to read this email.
I figured it's because he knows I'm retarded and can't really read all that well. Keep going.
If you want to read it on air, as the contents are directed at him, so it really should be read to him. So, Adam, if you're reading this first, stop here, pass it on to Sean or Bruce.
Have done so.
Done and done. I'm a longtime listener to the Hero Movie Podcast, and it seems to me whenever people write in, they focus on the great work Bruce does with the comic lore and Sean's always hilarious Stallone connection. I don't remember anyone really praising Adam for the amazing work he does. So that's what this email is, a love letter to Adam. I borrowed the following lines from V for Vendetta to express to Adam my feelings. Quoting. But what I hope most of all is that you understand what I mean when I tell you that even though I do not know you, and even though I may never meet you, laugh with you, cry with you, or kiss you, I love you. With all my heart, I love you. Are you feeling uncomfortable yet, Adam? Are you feeling emotions that are new and confusing? That's fine. There is no wrong way to feel. All jokes aside, Adam, I greatly appreciate all the work you have done and still do to make the Hero Movie Podcast and your other podcasts as well. HMP has brought me hours of laughter and entertainment. It is a source of happiness in my life, and I look forward to listening every week. So I wholeheartedly thank you for that. The things you create with your passion and hard work makes a difference in people's days. I just want you to know that. And yes, I am a real listener and not a fake email that Adam created to write into the show. Keep up the great work, fellas, from Jake.
It shows how much Jake really knows this show. So where he just goes, now hold on here. I just want to make it clear that he did not do what obviously you guys will think he did.
Well, I'm going to second everything that Jake says because I, too, really, really appreciate everything Adam does. And we have fun with each other, but we all three definitely understand each's contribution.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so Jake, trust me, they give me compliments off air. It is true. I play into it because it's fun for me and I can take a good joke and I'm often the very butt of a lot of jokes and I don't care. But that's what's fun. I like having my literacy brought into question every week and the ability to just, put together sentences that people will understand. You never know.
You know what I just realized is that just by reading that email, I understand why everyone thinks I sound like Adam Carolla. It's because I have Adam Carolla's cadence whenever I'm reading something.
Castrol GTX, everybody. But yeah, so if you'd like to write us an email praising me,
please do.
HeroMoviePodcast@gmail.com.
He needs it. He needs it. Give him your love, everybody.
Sometimes I just have to try. I have to do my best to try to talk myself off of that lonely bridge. So let's get into it. Speaking of this, before I start to get actually emotional, let's get to our trailer for our retro review of this week. Here's a trailer for Sam Raimi's Spider-Man.
Not everyone is meant to make a difference. But for me, the choice to live an ordinary life is no longer an option.
Twice, and I've never even seen his face. You are amazing.
All right, that was a trailer for Spider-Man, our retro review of this week.
I don't remember hearing any of that kind of music in the movie.
No, this.
I thought that was the Blade 2 trailer for a minute.
The Millennium guitar sting that they have all the.
A little bit of that action going on. Absolutely. Here's the IMDb plotline. As we know, IMDb always 100% correct in everything they say and or do.
Always.
Now, I'm sure you guys have never heard this story before. When bitten by a genetically modified spider, a nerdy, shy, and awkward high school student gains spider-like abilities that he eventually must use to fight evil as a superhero after tragedy befalls his family. That's written a little bit weird. This is, of course, directed by Sam Rami, starring Tobey Maguire, Kirsten Dunst, Willem Dafoe, James Franco, Cliff Robertson, Rosemary Harris, J.K. Simmons, and who I did not know because he was so blasted young with this thing. Joe Manganiello is in this flick. And I'm just like,
I found him unrecognizable. I didn't know it was him either till I saw the credits.
I was just like, him. Man, he's gotten more sexy as the time has gone on, that guy.
He also looks like he's about 30 in this movie.
Yes, he does.
Hey, you couldn't have a show set in high school in like the late 90s, early 2000s without having somebody looks like he's about 35 at high school.
Yeah, including the lead.
Indeed. So now, Bruce is a smart guy, right, Sean? I don't think that he's going to come to us with just the most basic thing of Spider-Man, because everybody knows who the heck Spider-Man is.
Oh, yes, he is. I think Bruce is stupid.
All right, well, fair enough. Bruce, what stupidness do you have for us as the comic book connection this week?
Well, it all started in 1962 with Amazing Fantasy 15. Spider-Man was the first teen superhero that never was and never will be a sidekick. This high schooler was worrying simultaneously about megamaniacal villains and geography class. Rapidly, he outpaced his comic book contemporaries in terms of popularity, and he came to essentially serve as the mascot for Marvel Comics in the same way that Superman and Batman served DC. Now, the web swinger reached the zenith of superhero superstardom when he was portrayed by Reeve Carney in Broadway's Turn Off the Dark, which I am sure is the inspiration for Lin-Manuel Miranda, who probably repurposed the basic storyline for the present-day smash hit, Hamilton.
You'd be nowhere without it. Nowhere.
Well,
Too many
Hamilton
Spider-Man.
is kind of the young, plucky underdog hero, and Aaron Burr is the wealthy industrialist, power-mad villain. But today's discussion is not one of the merits and shortcomings of the National Bank, but one of loss, personal maturation, and Randy Macho Man Savage. When asked about the genesis of the world's favorite wall crawler, Stan Lee claims he was inspired by watching a spider crawl up a wall, but later said he has told the story so many times that he no longer remembers if it is true, which to me is a surefire way to know that a story is almost certainly malarkey.
Yeah.
Now, at the time, teenage superheroes were usually given names ending with boy. Lee says he chose Spider-Man because he wanted the character to age as the series progressed, and moreover felt the name Spider-Boy would have made the character sound inferior to other superheroes. I'm kind of curious why Spider-Lad was never given proper consideration. But Lee originally approached Jack Kirby to draw Spider-Man, but he disliked the proposed art, so he turned to Kirby's sometime inker, Steve Ditko. I like to think it was because Stan was tired of screwing Kirby and he wanted to get some Strange. And you see what I did there? Ditko created Dr. Strange.
Super good.
Now, of course, in a total power move, he also told Ditko that his cover wasn't good enough and had Kirby draw that. Then he made Ditko ink the pencils that Kirby drew because Ditko's pencils weren't good enough.
Just my
now,
game.
is it a surprise to anyone that the world's greatest boss coffee mug that was given to Stan Lee was given to him ironically? Now, let's remember that though the artwork was on point from the beginning, Stan Lee referred to a spider as an insect in that first issue. And no matter how great any comic book hero is, he becomes stale quickly without appropriate adversaries. And Peter Parker had just as many of them as Spidey. Now, whether he was battling Flash Thompson and J. Jonah Jameson or Doc Ock and Leslie All-Star Rhino, it always felt like just as much effort went into the story of the antagonists as our barely shaving hero. Now, perhaps no villain has been as iconically linked to Spider-Man as Norman Osborn's Green Goblin, the Halloween-themed villain who I think should have been called the Pumpkin Chucker. Well, he's been as much of a threat in his human persona as in that of the Goblin. Now, according to Steve Ditko, Stan's synopsis for the Green Goblin had a movie crew on location finding an Egyptian-like sarcophagus. Inside was an ancient mythological demon, the Green Goblin. He naturally came to life. On my own, this is Steve Ditko speaking again, I changed Stan's mythology demon into a human villain. So good work for you, Steve. Now, Goblin cemented his place in Spider-Man lore in the landmark story the night Gwen Stacy died. Do you guys want to venture a guess at what happened in that story? I'm going to guess that people were a whole lot less concerned about spoilers back then.
She lost her V card.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Norman's father, going back to the genesis of Norman Osborn, Norman's father was a wealthy, alcoholic, abusive father. Think Bing Crosby here. And Norman quickly came to despise his father, resolving to be a better breadwinner while developing early homicidal tendencies as a means of relieving the stress of his father's abuse. He co-founds the major firm Oscorp Industries with his former professor, Mendel Strom, who appears in the movie. Now, with Norman Osborn as owner and president, it turns out that Norman's wife dies when his son Harry is only a year old, and this understandably adds significant stress to Norman's already stressful life. Hoping to gain more control of Oscorp Industries, Osborn accuses Strom of embezzlement and has his partner arrested. Norman then searches Strom's possessions, discovering an experimental strength/intelligence enhancement formula. When Norman attempts to create the serum, it turns green and explodes in his face. The accident greatly increases his intelligence and physical abilities, but it also drives him to destructive insanity. Green Goblin leads Spider-Man to inadvertently kill Gwen Stacy, and Spider-Man follows that up by inadvertently killing Green Goblin. Others would take up the Goblin mantle, and a resurrected Osborn would find all kinds of ways to be a powerful force for evil in the Marvel Universe. But the simple green-skinned lunatic throwing pumpkins from a hoverboard will always elicit some magical feelings from fans of the Silver Age of comic books.
Well, I mean, back in 2002, I mean, we'd already had X-Men at this point.
Yes.
And I remember we got a... My dad and I actually went out to get some like advanced screening tickets. Mm-hmm. Used to be in town, they would like in the free paper and everything. They would go like, hey, be at this like bookstore on this Friday at 7 a.m. or whatever, and get free tickets to whatever the latest movie would be. And Spider-Man was one, and we went to that. And I gotta say, like the initial thing going in, because there was a lot of hype behind this movie. And I looked around and I knew that this thing was going to be a hit because now granted these screenings normally fill up anyways, but the range of people that went to see this movie was absolutely astounding to me. Mm-hmm. I looked and I saw old, I saw young, I saw black, I saw white, I just everybody it was all four quadrants were going to this thing. And it was at that time the fastest thing to make $100 million in its opening weekend, which no other movie at that point, even when adjusted for inflation, hasn't done that. That's an astoundingly huge number. So Spider-Man was really kind of while X-Men I think probably gets a lot of the credit for it. I think Spider-Man really like brought us into this, new super age that we have.
One thing that you can't stress enough is that Spider-Man actually beat Attack of the Clones at the box office. X-Men had a nice solid performance at the box office and got a sequel, but short of some of the Warner Brothers movies, this is the first time that a Marvel movie really took the year. Superman in its day, that box office was high, even though with time, it doesn't look as impressive. And the same thing with Tim Burton's Batman. But this is the first time that something for Marvel took the year.
And not only that, but it also got, it fell into that same thing that Iron Man does, where it really seemed like inspired casting at the time to have Tobey Maguire playing Peter Parker.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
And I remember thinking when they cast Tobey Maguire, like, oh, that's perfect. That's exactly who needs to be Spider-Man. Although now when you watch it now, Tobey Maguire looks like he's about 57 years old in that high school. But
you know what? He's just as believable as Spider-Man or Peter Parker in high school as he was as a jockey in that Seabiscuit movie.
Well,
so
you're not wrong.
Hey, man, Patrick Swayze was 45 years old and still in high school in 210, so don't put nothing past nobody.
Did you guys like this movie when you first saw it? Of course you did.
I loved it, man.
Everybody loved this movie when they first saw it, and the computer effects aren't nearly what, it feels like that second Matrix movie to me, or the early Harry Potter movies where it's not quite right yet, and you can clearly see that it's a CGI Spider-Man when, even when you see Tobey Maguire's face.
I think it was before they understood the concept of mocap. Mm-hmm. I think that a lot of the CGI looks so good now and the movement looks so natural because they use motion cap, but this is still in that sort of phase where they were just entirely creating the characters like they would for a video game, just on the computer and trying to splice that into the movie. And it does look a little cartoonish at times. But, once they sort of figured out, I think Peter Jackson helped people figure that out with Andy Serkis and Gollum. So it does show. You can definitely tell it's not motion capture, that it's straight up computer generated images.
Agreed.
But there are worse movies that were made this year in terms of CGI.
You're not wrong. It's funny too, because when I first, I could not remember the last time I'd seen this movie. Watching this movie this week, I've seen Spider-Man 2 a bunch, because Spider-Man 2, I think is widely regarded as the best one of those three, with good reason. It's just terrific. But the first Spider-Man, the original Raimi Spider-Man, it's like Batman Begins for me, where I just had forgotten a bunch of the things that happened in this movie. And when you get, there's actors in this movie where it happened so long ago where you're like, oh, hey, that person's in this movie. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Banks is in this movie. And
the Oscar winner from The Help, is it Octavia Spencer?
Octavia Spencer's in this. I'm glad you brought that up, because I was certainly going to. I was watching it and I was just like, son of a gun, we got an Oscar winner over here taking tickets.
I know, so crazy. And another Oscar winner, Macho Man Randy Savage is in it.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank the Academy.
Lifetime Achievement Slim Jim Award.
Man, I so desperately wanted him. That's so funny, man.
I'm down here at the gyms, as we call them.
I so desperately wanted him to be the Stallone connection this week. I just tried to muscle it in, and I just couldn't make it work, so he's not. And it's funny when you see his IMDb list. There's Spider-Man, and then there is a million WWF specials.
Well, if only he had been Thunderlips, your job would have been easy.
Oh, you're not kidding. It would have been glorious.
But yeah, I mean, this was this thing came out of nowhere, and like X-Men gave us kind of like the more.
What do you mean came out of nowhere? This movie got rolled out like 2 years in advance, and everybody was like, "Oh my God, it's coming!"
Well, I mean,
also I would say that the sort of mass media after fallout, I guess is the word I'm looking for, the after effects of the events of September 11th from 2001. I first felt it through the context of this movie, because this was the first movie I remember hearing about that things were changed to reflect the differing skyline in New York, and scenes were being cut and teasers were being pulled.
Well, as a matter of fact, as I was talking to Sean before we started rolling here and everything, that my introduction to this movie was an amazing teaser trailer that you just cannot find anymore, where it just starts out, there's this big giant bank robbery and everything. You see stuff like there's a lot of cool things going on, a lot of guys in just kind of SWAT gear just messing around and stuff. They're heading up to the roof. Let's get on the helicopter. They get to the helicopter flies off, and then all of a sudden just helicopter can't move anymore. And you're like, what the heck's going on here? And like, I knew when that helicopter kind of went back and everything, I was like, oh snap, here we go. Cut to a wide shot. In between the two trade towers is this helicopter brought up at a big giant spider web, and it was glorious. And it was just like, that was a huge Spider-Man teaser. And it was like, dude,
and that wasn't
amazing.
Just in the teaser. By all reports, that was in the film.
I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Scenes. And think of what an expensive cut that was.
Oh, it looks so awesome, and it was such a great way to really kind of give fans that tease going, hey man, Spider-Man is coming. And such a bummer that, what happened, of course, obviously not.
The bigger issue.
The bigger issue is the fact that we can't see that teaser trailer and it's cut out of the movie. That is not the bigger issue. Okay, maybe not, but you get what I'm saying.
Hey,
it's a shame. I'm just saying that the effects are felt further.
The enemies were brought down. It was all about Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's why we sent people over there, because it's like, by George, you've really messed up this Spider-Man thing we got going over
Adam
here.
Portrais, do I have to become your living conscience?
Maybe.
Is that what's going to happen? You need to call
Frank
me.
Miller wanted to send Batman over, but DC wouldn't let him. Thus, we got that Abomination Holy Terror.
Yeah, sure.
Oof.
But yeah, I mean, I was excited for this, and I'll say this: going in, I think it was kind of. I think Sean had said this at some point, and I think I agree. And tell me if this is something that you did not say, and I'm just putting it into your voice here. Is that Tobey Maguire is a good Peter Parker, but a bad Spider-Man?
Yes, completely agree.
Here's what I say. I wouldn't say he's a bad Spider-Man. He's just not a good Spider-Man. I think he's sort of a mediocre Spider-Man at best. But a lot of, I mean, how much of that was actually Toby. You know what I mean?
I don't blame him. I blame the writing for it because I don't think they knew how to write Spider-Man at all.
Well, one of the things they got right in Amazing Spider-Man is that they actually made him jokey and funny. The weight of the world is on Tobey Maguire's shoulders, and they really make it seem like it's a huge bummer to have spider powers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess, you're talking about that later movie, The Amazing Spider-Man, where they write Spider-Man really well, but when Garfield is Peter Parker, he's absolutely boring. So,
because
I think
he's like
more to do with the writing than the performance.
He's too handsome, and he's just like, it's like, well, of course this is going to be the kid that chicks fall in love with. So let's look at him. He's a cute guy, Yeah. And Tobey Maguire, you're just like, oh, well, that's clearly a nerd, but he doesn't have the je ne sais quoi when the mask is on. So it's give a little, get a little.
I was watching.
And I'm trying to think who in 2002 would have been a better Peter Parker. It's hard for me to
There
think.
isn't. He's the best Peter Parker you could have possibly come up with. They really did it was inspired casting.
Yeah, you just have to yell at David Koepp for the writing, I guess. I don't know.
And it's not even all the writing. It's just they don't have the quips. And I think a lot of that goes back to probably 90% of the time we see Spider-Man with his mask off, it's either a stuntman or CGI.
Well, and that's the problem with this movie, and that's the problem with, as much as I like the Raimi Spider-Man movies, that's the problem with the movies is that they always are like, we have to come up with some crummy way for you to see his face because you can't see acting through a makeup. Guess what? We just made some Spidey eyes move this year. Guess what? You can make that happen. So shut up.
I kind of remembered, sort of that trope that you just mentioned. I remembered Tobey Maguire just having his mask off all the time, but it's only at the end where we really get to see Tobey Maguire with the mask off and the spider suit on.
Bit more
I remembered it being way more present in this first movie than it was.
Yeah, well, Adam just nailed it. It's because in 2 he always has the mask off. It's never on.
There's literally like 50 people that look him right in the face, which is a great moment in 2, but at the same time, it's just like it's yet another excuse so we can see this actor's face, which, not for nothing, I'd rather see him wear a Spider-Man mask.
Yeah.
So, when this movie starts off, the school bus is coming around the corner there, and is it Queens? Is that where he lives? Queens or Brooklyn?
Queens.
I think it's Queens.
It's Queens.
Get it right.
So the bus is coming around the corner there in Queens, and he's missed the bus, and the bus driver's even kind of laughing at him, running to catch up to it. And Mary Jane steps forward and gets the bus driver to stop so that Peter can get on. Then he gets the old Forrest Gump treatment once he gets on the bus.
Seats taken.
Even from every loser kid that's there, which is great. It's like when the other loser kids look at you and go, no, that's bad news.
I wanted to see Spider-Man beat the crap out of that bus driver. What a prick.
Well, what I do like, too, is unless I'm getting some of the sequence confused, this was a little misdirect, though, because the bus was going directly to the field trip here, right? I do admire that they didn't toy around. I felt like some other attempts to tell stories like this, they toy around just way too long before they get to their quote-unquote secret origin. And I felt like they took him straight to that museum with the genetically engineered spiders right off the bat.
I disagree all the way. I wanted to see him sit in homeroom. I wanted to have him check roll. I wanted to worry about what test he was going to take in 4th period. All that stuff missing really broke my heart.
It's funny you bring that up, Bruce, because I watched this movie with my girlfriend this week, and one of the things she admires, because she likes the first Raimi Spider-Man movie, and one of the things she admires about the movie is how quickly they get to the meat of the story. They're not Bendising it where, the first movie, he becomes Spider-Man at the very end.
Yeah.
They're not doing that in this movie. They're getting to it.
Or even worse is when they do the false alarms, like the spider lands on his shoulder and you think it's going to bite him and then he knocks it off. Then like 3 or 4 other spiders keep falling on him throughout the movie, but it's not until the 7th one falls on him that he gets bitten.
Right. There's a guy who punches him dressed as Spider-Man.
Yeah.
You got bit. I'm like, wait a minute, what?
Of course, I do prefer the Peter Porker, the Spectacular Spider-Ham story where it's a spider who was bitten by a radioactive pig and gave him all the abilities of a pig. I like that version, too. So
it is pretty great. When is that movie being made?
Hey, it can't be made soon enough for me.
Well, now that Marvel and Sony are in this.
I've already got the lead cast. Give me that pig from Babe.
Man, that pig is dead. There's no way that pig is still
long
living.
Lives, man. I heard pigs live to be 700 years old.
Every 700-year-old pig.
They're like sea turtles and trees.
Here's our 7-year-old pig. We call him Noah.
That explains why when you cut open a pig to learn its age, because you count the rings.
Yes,
Now I
exactly.
get it. Now I get it.
It's gross, but we've determined how old this pig
Look,
is.
you age pigs the way you're going to age pigs. I do it by cutting them open and counting the ring.
Now, he is dead at that
it also
point,
works,
but, you know.
It also works for feral children, too.
Let me get into that arm, see how old you are. He's 6, send him to the orphanage. Why is there another orphan here without an arm?
Start screaming at you like Nell.
Why do you think Raimi went with the whole genetic engineering angle instead of radiation? Because Marvel has so been built over Stan Lee's wretched fear of radiation.
Or
you've
not
got the
knowing
gamma
of how
rays,
most
the
things
cosmic
work.
rays, and the radioactive spider, just to name a few. Why do you think they went with the genetic engineering? Was that kind of more relevant in 2002 than
Because
radiation?
this is like Dolly the Llama time, man.
But it doesn't. Isn't the Spider-Man, the Ultimate Spider-Man, out at this point? And that's how they redraw the origin for him. Is that it's a
I feel like
genetically
Ultimate
altered spider.
Spider-Man's not out yet.
I think it's got a year or two to in the hopper.
Really,
I think.
before so the Raimi Spider-Man comes out before Ultimate Spider-Man.
I believe so.
I mean, just feel how Silver Age this movie feels.
It
When
does.
we get into our impressions of it, this is probably the most Silver Age superhero movie I've ever seen. You know, I've seen movies that do good Golden Age homages, like that Christopher Reeve Superman, and there's some other stuff that kind
The
of
Rocketeer is one of those movies.
Yeah, well, no, it was out. It had been out.
Was it
2000. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so because when they made him genetically altered instead of radioactive, it made sense to me because they were going with his origin from Ultimate Spider-Man, not the
But
original.
how long had
60s.
this script been getting retooled? I still wonder sometimes about the tail wagging the dog, you know?
Well, I don't know, man. This thing's been like the whole Spider-Man thing had been around forever. Where there was like
Is
at
this
one
still
point,
Cameron's script they're using
Cameron
for
was
this?
gonna like do a thing with DiCaprio being
Right.
Spider-Man, and like there was something forever and a day.
There was a brief time where Canon Films had the rights to Spider-Man, and I think they tried to get Tom Cruise for the role.
Tom Cruise had been like 35 then, anyway.
Well, it was Canon Film, so it wouldn't shock me if they tried to get Chuck Norris to do it.
Chuck
Yeah.
Norris is the Green Goblin.
Listen, I got to go do Firewalker, and then I'll do Spider-Man.
Yeah, I think, man, I don't know if I've got some of my details mixed up, but I think they took the scrapped script for Spider-Man that Canon Films had commissioned, along with the scrapped sequel to Masters of the Universe to make that Jean-Claude Van Damme cyborg movie.
They put him in a boggle machine, shuck it up, and go, "There's your Spider-Mans. Enjoy."
Look, I don't know if you're joking or not right now, but I sure hope you're not.
I am not joking about that.
God, that's great.
I may be wrong, but I'm not joking.
I'm deadly serious. It may be factually incorrect, but nevertheless.
You know, one of the things about this movie whilst watching it is there is no denying who directed this movie.
Oh, that
That's
was
something else that surprised me, though, because I didn't remember just how Raimi this thing felt.
Man.
I thought this felt more Raimi than Darkman did.
oh, so much so.
Yeah, it does.
But that was the thing, man, and that's when Raimi was announced. I mean, like I'd liked plenty of his work previous, but I'm like, wow, what a really odd choice to do Spider-Man, and he brings a real comic sensibility about it to the whole thing, which I think was really good.
Ultimately, I think it's a really smart choice because it does feel very comic booky as you're watching this movie. And you know what I'm thinking, just sitting here now, is that this might be the first movie where they're not trying to shy away from the comic book goofiness of Spider-Man.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. They're embracing the Silver Age.
Yeah.
I mean, this feels like the most Silver Age movie I think I've ever seen. You know, I've seen a lot that feel bronze and modern and gold, like I said before, but I've never really felt a good Silver Age feel about a movie until I watched this one. And particularly rewatching it with a little bit of perspective, 14 years later, I definitely feel that Silver Age now. But I've got another question for you guys. So when the military folks, General Slocum and the other military contractors are at Oscorp asking them about their super soldier serum or whatever they're calling it, the enhancement serum that they've invented, and Norman Osborn and Dr. Strom say that they've given it to rats and it makes the rats super fast, super strong, but insane. Were you guys hoping we'd get like a Captain America Reb Brown scene of the rats lifting weights?
Now here's a rat running his butt off.
But here's what I want to know, guys. How do you really know when a rat's gone insane? He's just painting red rum over and over again on his aquarium.
Everyone knows, Bruce. There's standardized rat IQ tests that they all take, and then you have like a test group. Then you have a what do you call it? What's the other group there where you don't do nothing to?
The
I don't
control
know.
group.
Control group. See, I'm not a bright man.
But I kind of wonder, like, how can you tell if a rat is talking to himself? Like, how can you tell if a rat is having hallucinations? I just don't know.
It
They
just
look
keeps
to the
rubbing.
left and look to the right, look to the left, look to the right when they start.
It
I
just
would've
keeps
loved
rubbing
to
his
see
head.
how Sam Rami communicated an insane rat. I wish they would have given us the scene of the rats in their cages being super strong and insane.
Well, that was a meeting, and he got shut down for that. There's no way that he didn't have that storyboarded.
And I feel like Raimi
Avi Arad's
probably-
very scared of rats.
I feel like Raimi probably would have been familiar with that old Red Brown movie. He's in his 50s, so he would have been a kid when that was cool. And I just wonder if that was just the slightest homage to Flag and the super strong guinea pig.
Oh, man, that would have been great.
Sam Rami emails at yourmoviepodcast@gmail.com.
Also, I'm available for other projects.
Yeah, why not?
Oh, man. But, Peter gets bitten by that spider, and he goes home and just kind of like passes out. I guess he sleeps really hard for about 14 hours. Then he wakes up and doesn't eat his glasses anymore, and he's all muscular. I guess Sam Raimi didn't want to pull any punches on the whole puberty imagery, did he?
Not by much, I don't think. But I mean, I liked it well enough. I liked how they kind of like disguised him, as the skinny kid and everything. And then, now granted, no one ever just goes, "Weren't you just a little shrimpy thing about like 2 days ago here when you were at the thing?" Okay, well, fair enough. I guess you're buff now.
I love Cliff Robertson as Uncle Ben here. There's something about him, man. Like, there's one part when Peter's leaving the house after he just had his mega puberty hit him after getting bitten by the spider, and he says something to Cliff Robertson. He says something like, "Don't start it up without me," and he says, "Don't you start anything up with me." Okay, like, I don't even know what that means, but it got a chuckle out of me.
Listen, I'm telling you right now, there's weed somewhere in that house.
I'm wondering.
These are the old hippie Aunt May and Uncle.
Now, Bruce,
Ben.
I got a question for you. Are you pissed that Hot Toys hasn't come up with an Uncle Ben action figure?
Oh man, no, that's okay because I can make my own Cliff Robertson.
now with chest grabbing action. Oh, I've been shot.
Now, I got to tell you, though, and tell me if you guys disagree with me, but I think Cliff Robertson's Uncle Ben was probably getting some side action. He looked like he was all full of life, and Aunt May just looked like she didn't have the energy to take care of his needs at that point.
See, I like her because she's pulling it from the comics, where Aunt May was always on death's door from issue number 1, where it's just like, this frail old lady, if a strong wind comes by, is going to kill her.
Offering
Well, she
Pete
still
wheat
had
cakes.
the gams to attract Doc Ock for a little while.
Which is really, really weird on a lot of levels.
Doc Ock might be the only person who is in a relationship with both Aunt May and Mary Jane Watson.
Yeah, it takes all kinds of weird Germans to do whatever.
Well, first of all, I applaud the man. Good job by him.
It's called having range.
That is range, and he's got it. Good job.
Oh, man. He and Bill Clinton have done it all. Anyway. So here's something else I like, too, because Peter's got the crush on the redhead next door, as anybody would, and her parents are just like total junkyard dogs. I don't know how to describe them. Her dad seems awful, and
You trash.
White trash.
You trash is what he
he's
kept
talking
saying
to her, and she bonds with him a little bit. But then Flash Thompson, did we already mention that Flash Thompson is Manganiello? Did we say that off the air? Or
Yeah,
were we
no, that
recording?
was on air.
Okay, good, because man, I did not recognize the I don't know, the stripper from Magic Mike or the werewolf from True Blood at all.
Wasn't
in this
enough
movie, or
sexy
Pee-wee's
music
best
playing for
friend.
my taste.
I love that he literally looks like he's 42 years old.
Yes, but he pulls up in like a Prowler or something that was a really hot car in the late 90s, early 2000s, but totally looks like something that came out of an Archie comic. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I'll be honest. Like, I saw a Plymouth Prowler once in person, and it is an impressive car because it looks like a Hot Wheels car come to life, and you're just like, who said this was a really good idea? And then they made it, and you're like, wow, that is unbelievable.
So his answer to Joe Manganiello's Flash Thompson is to get his own car, but he looks through the newspaper and he's looking at all these different cars that are too expensive. Then he finally finds one for $3,000. Did you guys notice what kind of car he found for $3,000?
Alfa Romeo, right?
An Alfa Romeo Spider.
Oh.
So there's a little bit of the pun there, and I don't know a lot about European cars, but I kind of think Alfa Romeos probably cost more than $3,000, right? Especially in Manhattan.
It's probably broken.
It's broken. Oh, great.
It's like it doesn't have an engine, but it's got a sweet chassis. How about you go sit in that and impress the girls?
Car don't work, but the radio's fine. Come on over, Mary Jane. We don't need to drive nowhere.
It's
You can't even drive from the
2002. I got
backseat anyway, baby.
It's 2002. I got a little bit of Limp Bizkit here in the CD player.
Are you kidding? He's all Nickelback. This movie is Nickelbacked out.
Hey, have you heard the new one from Chumbawamba yet?
I got the new Chumbawamba here.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's the follow-up to Tub Thumping.
Who among us hasn't in high school needed to make some money quick and went to wrestle to get that money? I know I've done it.
I don't do the underground stuff. I always do the stuff that is above board, where I'm going to be signing some sort of a contract.
There's a part of me that would love to live in a world where this is a real thing, and there's a part of me that is so glad that I don't, because I wouldn't probably be sitting here with you guys right now if it did, unless I was doing the Stephen Hawking communication thing.
That is the most well-attended amateur wrestling event I've ever seen.
Well, I mean, when you're going to get a gladiator-style bout at the end where it's just like, all comers, who wants some of this guy right here?
Yeah,
I don't care if you got any training. I don't care if you got any medical disabilities. Hop your butt on up here and let this 65-year-old man who's hopped up on steroids and maybe crack cocaine punch you right in the face.
And do you just tell me, do you think they had a little bit of trouble getting an insurance company to underwrite this business?
I was like, ma'am, he looks like he's about to have a heart attack just standing here right now. We can't let him in the building.
Plus,
I think they had a problem.
He's got a crowbar against a high school kid. Maybe we shouldn't insure this.
I think they had a problem getting insurance just for the IATSE guys that they had to hire to bring in the cage.
But this must have been like a real thing in the Depression or something. Like it's such a trope in movies and books and films and cartoons and stuff. Like there must have been a time where they would have this competition that if you could stay in a cage with a bear for 5 minutes, you got $100 or something. Like this had to exist. I'm guessing the Depression.
I'm betting we're heading that way now as a society.
It does feel like it's an antiquated thing that happened during the Depression. You were right about that, buddy.
You didn't see him in the background because it was in a deleted scene, but they're lifting up those, just kind of big giant, weights with the balls on either end and stuff, and lifting them up with one finger and whatnot.
Right. The kids are running by with a hoop and a stick.
Yeah, it's all kinds of
I know when I was 17, 18 years old, like Peter Parker, I thought that I was way stronger than I really was, and more importantly, I thought I was way more invulnerable than I really was. So I could have seen me falling prey to one of these setups.
I think that's how they do. They just like, let's get all these rednecks liquored up and like throw them in a wrestling ring and just go like, hey, why don't we fight people?
Instead of Spider-Man, after that, I'd be known as the Human Caterpillar.
I do like how he just what did he say he wanted his name to be?
Man Spider.
Man Spider.
Human Spider.
The
human
spider. The Human Spider.
And Bruce Campbell looks at him like, you are an idiot.
That is the worst name ever.
And let me tell you, this is like prime time area Bruce Campbell right here. Bruce Campbell's looking good. He hadn't got into the kind of like, well, I've been in my career for a little while and it's time for me to take a break. He's still banging on all cylinders at Bruce Campbell at this point.
And Bruce Campbell's character's name, I don't think was ever said in the movie, but he was supposed to be somebody. Like he was supposed to come back as a significant villain in the third or fourth movie that just kind of never happened. But man, I wish I could find that trivia on IMDb again. If only I had the energy to look it up. But anyway, I think he was supposed to be somebody important and it just kind of fell to the wayside. But he does, or at least he did for a while, really play the part of the guy who gave Spider-Man his name. I mean, on interviews on Jay Leno or whatever talk show he would be on, he loved to play up the idea that he's the guy that created Spider-Man's name.
That's what I love. That's what I love about Bruce Campbell. Just a heck of a guy.
And it's a shame that Hollywood let him age out of the role he was born to play, because I would have loved to have seen a Plastic Man movie with Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, but now he's playing Ronald Reagan, which is pretty great.
I do like that.
What was the other thing I heard he was playing recently? I don't know. Anyways, but so he's great in that. I love that we just get to see Macho Man in his last glorious. I don't know if he did things other than this, but I'm going to say that this was his swan song.
Yeah,
it was.
It probably was. And
I did the research. It is.
The wrestler in the comics, because there was a story like this in the Spider-Man comics where Spidey went to a wrestling match to win money, and he fought against a wrestler named Crusher Hogan. But I guess that's too much like Hulk Hogan, so they had to change it to Bonesaw McGraw. But I kind of like it, though, that there is some seed of truth in the comic book origins to this scenario, though. I don't think it was this high production quality.
That would never happen, though, because I don't know if you know this, Bruce, but Hulk Hogan and the Macho Man got some harsh words for each other. So much so, he wrote a rap album about it.
Macho Man did?
Macho Man has a diss rap album against Hulk Hogan. That is a 100% truth.
I can't listen to that. I'm sorry.
My other friends have done it for me, and I have really realized that he's like, listen to this. In about 5 seconds, you're just like, please kill me. But they, my friends actually, they decided as a joke to just ride down in Myrtle Beach, just blaring that out of their car, having Macho Man's rap album.
Rest in peace, Macho. I guess I'll listen to your rap album on the anniversary of your unfortunate demise every year or something.
Indeed. But of course, you get the old trappings of the Spider-Man story where, God comes in to rob the place, not my responsibility kind of thing, and then there you go.
And can we give a little special recognition to Michael Papajohn, the guy that plays the ludicrously haired robber?
Damn right, because he's in both the Raimi Spider-Mans and Amazing Spider-Man movie.
And yeah, this guy's got a lot of hero movie credits to himself here. I think he may be amongst the top echelon of how many superhero movies have I been in.
He's also.
Plus, I hope he got paid extra for that haircut.
He's a Stallone connection, also.
There's a shocker.
But I love that hair, man, because I think if you're gonna go down that pathway in life of armed robbery, you probably don't have hair that's about as easy to spot as a lighthouse on a clear night.
Look, I don't have the time to go to the supercuts here. I have to rob people.
Supercuts.
But of course, all this leads to Ben getting carjacked and shot. And of course, Peter erroneously thinks it's Michael Papajohn, but we all know that it was Flint Marko. But anyway, he goes to exact his revenge on Papajohn, and he's in the warehouse there. I'm calling him Papajohn because I don't know what his
because we like pizza. We all know that.
That's how I pronounced his name when whatever episode he was the Stallone connection in.
But he goes into this warehouse, man, and you realize that in a lot of ways, this is new territory for Marvel. Like you said, X-Men's already been around, but just how much this feels like Batman. Like how I feel like they've borrowed pretty heavily from Superman and Batman lore in this Spider-Man movie. But this is a very Batman feel to it when he's got Papajohn sort of cornered in that abandoned building, and he's kind of exhausting his options of nightly vengeance on the guy before causing him to fall out of the window and die.
Ready to take his revenge on his dark and stormy night, as always,
Yeah, but very, very Batman feeling there, and then they make a couple of Superman references throughout the movie too, but they don't make a single Incredible Hulk reference or anything like that. Even though I did read somewhere that initially they tried to get Hugh Jackman to show up as Wolverine, but Fox kind of put the hatchet down on that.
See, I don't know the validity of that because, I mean, I think that's just probably something that, if my guess is that something that came around and was never really going to happen because that kind of stuff didn't happen back then.
Jackman, they settled for that Jim Norton guy.
We settled for a one-line Jim Norton. I listened to a podcast recently where he was talking about his scene in Spider-Man and everything. They were just like, it was all second unit, as you might imagine. But they were like, I don't know, just say something mean about Spider-Man. And he would just start, as one would imagine from Jim Norton, cursing a lot. They were like, we can't use any of that. This is a children's movie. He's just like, the guy stinks. And then they just cut, and that was it.
The guy stinks. But, after we get this sort of origin story and we get to see that lovely, lovely homemade sweatsuit Spider-Man costume, we kind of turn our attention back to Norman Osborn again. And, we see that Norman Osborn has treated himself, with the gas or whatever, the whatever you want to call that Green Goblin gas. I like to call it super soldier serum.
I like how you said he treats himself like he just bought himself like a mimosa.
Yeah. Well, we have got to mention that when Norman Osborn gets on that table and they put the metal bands around him, he literally goes, "Ooh, that's cold."
That was so great. I'm just like, Raimi, you are a genius for leaving this in here.
I can't imagine picking a better person to play a lunatic than my man Willem Dafoe.
I will say this: he is probably the most unsung person in this entire thing. Willem Dafoe is just delivering all the way. It may be cheesy, it may be corny, but man, is he leaning into it hard, and it works.
It's so perfect, man.
And I heard, once again, I don't know the validity of these rumors, but I heard that he wasn't their first choice, that he had to kind of lobby to get the role of Norman Osborn, which I think is a weird thing in the first place to really want to play Norman Osborn. But that, I guess the rumor that has been circulated for the past 14 years is that their first choice was another Hollywood lunatic, Nicolas Cage.
Well, that's funny you should bring that up because I have the top three, because originally they really wanted to go with Billy Crudup, believe it or not, as the Green. They did.
We can't get Crudup. Just shut down production if you can't.
Well,
get
they decided that he was too young to play Norman Osborn, so instead they went with the next guy, who was Bill Paxton. They actually wanted Bill Paxton, and they went so far with Bill Paxton that Paxton's father is in the movie as like Norman Osborn's like servant, like servant in the movie. And then they ended up with Defoe, and they only went with Defoe because Raimi fought for him.
Okay, good. Yeah. Well, good for Raimi, man. Good for Raimi.
But yeah, I thought he just brings what he does to every role, like a crazy loose cannon. Because that's how Willem Dafoe is in 90% of the movies that he's in. It's just like, this guy is off his hinges and is just going to snap at any time.
Even in the stuff where he's funny.
Yeah.
He's that.
And it's going to be weird seeing him as Aquaman's advisor whenever that Jason Momoa Aquaman movie gets made. But he's going to play Voko or Volkov or whatever his name is. But anyway, Norman gives himself the treatment, the flag. I'll just call it
the
flag.
Cocktail.
And then he goes and interrupts this military experiment. It turns out that those same military officials, General Slocum and company, are visiting Oscorp's bitter rival, West Industries. And they've got like this really bad Iron Man type suit that they're giving a trial run on. And just out of nowhere comes our first sighting of the Green Goblin in costume on his Goblin glider, throwing the pumpkin bombs at this unfortunate Iron Man wannabe.
Well, it's sad, really, because here's the thing. I mean, Green Goblin is tough to do and pull off and not make it seem stupid.
Right.
And that's what I kind of liked about the Ultimate books, where they were just like, screw it, we're just going to make him a big giant green monster. Uh-huh. And at least that could
that worked for me.
That could kind of work, but this is just like, to work in real life is so difficult because you can't give him like a traditional kind of like latexy sort of mask. But as we've seen in this film, the helmet thing doesn't exactly really work all that well.
But you're not going to make the purple underpants and the long stocking cap work.
Yeah, like you can't use that either.
I think if there's anybody that could make the stocking cap work, it might have been Defoe. Give him the old French peasant from Les Mis kind of hat up there and paint his face green, make his ears a little bit pointy, but he's already got the right features to be a goblin.
Yeah, he does.
He's very goblin-esque, that guy.
No, I actually think it was a fine choice to go with the non-animated mask, and I think it was very much a choice and not something that was the best they could do. You know what I mean? We see with how they deal with Spider-Man that they could have done something different. You know, they weren't limited by what they were capable of. This is what Raimi wanted to go for. And I don't have a problem with it. I think they could have made the mask a little bit smaller. I mean, he looks like one of those crystal skull aliens, like the way they stretch the top of it out and everything. So I think they could have gone with a little bit different look to the mask, and I would have went with it just fine. But
very mid-90s Saban, for sure.
For sure.
Yeah, the Power Rangers. I mean, that's the time and time again what it gets compared to. But you know what? The Power Rangers was a fairly successful franchise right around the time this movie was made. And it makes it memorable, and it's visually identifiable, and it certainly didn't hurt the box office any. So I think it was a good choice all the way around. You know, not one that we would make today, but I think it works just fine in this movie. And there's something creepy about the way you can still see Defoe's eyes and mouth in behind that mask that almost gave it like an alien feel that I like too.
Yeah, and that was very much of their design. They were just like, and again, it's one of those, we can't just look at this Green Goblin mask, looking at this Spider-Man mask, and assume, hey, here's the dialogue between these two characters. We're like, we got to see something, for crying out loud. Make them a little translucent there. Oh, there we go. We kind of see Defoe behind those, so sure.
And it seems to me also that they have the choice of whether or not they want to show you his mouth in that helmet, because from time to time you can't see his mouth on screen, and so he has to do the weird thing where his head goes back and forth. And,
like the kabuki talking.
Yes, exactly.
or when Barney the dinosaur has to talk to the kids.
Hi, everybody. Oh, boy. Thanks for that image. Thought we got Barney out of our head 20
I wanna
years ago,
see
but
that
thanks for
movie.
bringing that back.
But anyway, kind of the next thing we see, is
I'm
high
more
school
of a Blue's
graduation.
Clues guy.
And sort of the most over-quoted thing that Joe Quesada has ever said is that Spider-Man, Peter Parker, never should have been allowed to graduate high school, yet he keeps graduating in every incarnation of him that we get. So it doesn't surprise me that he graduates here. And it does kind of move the story forward. It gets him out of Aunt May's house, and it puts him and Harry in closer proximity, which does serve the conflict of the story going forward.
And he's not damn near 30 and in high school.
Yeah, but I do think that this is the point where all of this magical Silver Age charm starts to become a little diluted. And it's not, don't want to say that the movie gets bad by any means, but the first 45 minutes of this movie, I'm watching it and saying, I did not remember how good this movie is. Why is this not like my favorite movie of all time? Then it hits this little skid and reminds me, okay, it's good, but it's not my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah, the second act of this movie is where things start falling apart for me as well.
And I hate to say fall apart. They just don't have the magic that they had in the beginning for me. But
it's tough. I mean, you get into like the whole Times Square debacle.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you guys about.
Just
this Unity Fair. What do you think?
It's bright daylight, and that's tough to do. Up until recently, you really didn't see a lot of stuff that was in the super broad daylight because the CGI sticks out like a sore thumb and looks like crap. I mean, outside of like the only time that they've really done it super, super well since even then really has been in the latest Captain America movie, where we see them all fight out the airport there in broad daylight, and it looks great.
They have to do 60 cuts in a minute to make that look good, too.
Yeah,
I mean, that's so ultra-rapid cut that you can't dwell on anything long enough to see its flaws. But I do love the way, and it's like it's straight out of a Saturday morning cartoon, and I'm cool with it. But I can almost hear the Green Goblin cackling from like 3 miles away as we just see that smoke trail.
Oh, no, you literally can.
Times Square. Yeah, I love that. The way he just shows up and ruins what was probably the best day Macy Gray had in a long time.
Well, the weird...
Here's
funny.
Sony recording artist Macy Gray. Why did you say the word of the company? All right, fair enough.
And the other thing about this fair is that it completely betrays itself as a movie because they're trying to make it very Batman-y. It's very...
Oh, this is
Batman.
the Tim Burton scene, if you ask me.
Oh, it is to you. To me, it feels off center from the rest of the movie. It betrays what they were doing earlier to me, because you have this gigantic, huge spectacle, which I know that you need, and especially you need it in the middle of the second act. I understand that, but this is not what this movie was originally. When you're watching it, it's a little smaller. I mean, yes, it's this gigantic, very expensive movie, but they're trying to show you snapshots, basically, of what it's like to live in New York and what it's like to be Peter Parker and blah, 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 blah. This is too big for this movie, in my opinion.
And I got to tell you, there's one moment that'll never be forgotten, and that is when Green Goblin throws this bomb and suddenly turns the board of directors of Oscorp into the Pirates of the Caribbean extras.
Yeah.
That just seems so out of place in this movie, how they just magically turn into skeletons, not unlike what I saw in Army of Darkness.
Ashen skeletons that then just fall to the earth as so much dust.
Now,
You're like, wow,
was
this
like
is
one where
dark.
They just had to pacify Raimi and let him do that, because that one is way out of context here. It just doesn't seem to fit in.
I just got the VP of production in my mouth.
Oh, that's just Gary was always
man.
the worst in life and in death. Gross.
And I guess around this time, Peter has unraveled the mystery that Harry and Mary Jane are dating. But this is also the same time that Mary Jane, who's not interested in Peter, meets Spider-Man and becomes kind of squishy for Spider-Man.
Squishy for Spider-Man. That's how you're going to crib this?
Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs and squishy for Spider-Man.
Fair enough.
All right.
But then, they get kind of a nice classic sort of superhero narrative scene, too, where when the villain first meets the hero, he doesn't really have that much against him. He just says, hey, why don't you help me out? You be my sidekick and we can run this town. And when the hero refuses, that's the real genesis of the rivalry, more than what it should be, because they don't know yet who is behind the respective masks.
He said no to me, so I'm going to go beat him up now. What a jerk.
Yeah, it happens a lot, man.
And also, don't forget that when they first meet each other, they meet each other in the Daily Bugle. And every time J.K. Simmons is in this movie, the movie gets instantly 1 point better every single time that he is on screen.
It is just
He's
absolute
so
gold.
And who's the guy playing Robbie Robertson that looks kind of like a middle-aged version of Keenan or Kel? I don't know which one, but one of those Keenan and Kel kids from Nickelodeon.
I believe his name is, I got it right here, Bill Nunn.
Bill Nunn looks like Keenan Thompson.
He does. He looks like he could be Keenan Thompson's dad.
It kind of looks to me like Fat Albert got an MBA and went to work at the newspaper.
Man.
Okay.
I'm about to fall down a hole, so we need to move on because I'll keep talking about the Fat Albert movie. I could talk about it forever because it's so crazy.
Yeah, but, I do love, man. I do so much love the J. Jonah Jameson we get here. I almost called him Perry White, but they are essentially
you monster.
But I do love the guy, the way that J.K. Simmons does it, and I think he is going to be missed in all future adaptations of Spider-Man, and he's always going to overshadow those that come after him in that role. But I guess we'll have to deal with him being Commissioner Gordon soon.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
But I'm sorry, you can be I like the guy as an actor, Oscar-winning actor at this point, and I as much as I won't mind seeing him as Jim Gordon, I want to see him as Jonah, man, because that is just where this cat's wheelhouse is.
Me too.
And people he'd been out and he'd been in plenty of things previously, but this was the one that skyrocketed him into a household name right here.
Yeah, I think he was best known for his role in Lady Killers before this.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He had IBS. I forgot.
It was his Mountain Girl. He brought Mountain Girl to the Waffle Hut.
I think he was in Oz before this.
Oh, he totally
yeah,
was.
He was a bad guy.
He was boy. When the first thing you see, if you come to Oz after you see Spider-Man, all of a sudden you're just like, oh, so the first time that we see J.K. Simmons is tattooing a swastika on another man's butt with a pen.
Yep.
Okay, wow, this is not the J. Jonah Jameson I know.
Oh man, but Goblin offers Spider-Man a spot as his sidekick. And one thing about Spider-Man is he is not anybody's sidekick. But they have this fight, and Matrix, man. Matrix is going to loom so heavily over all the movies we talk about in this turn of the millennium.
You can't help
time period. It just dominates the scene. In fact, we're going to be talking about it a lot next week, I suspect also. But we get these ninja star Kroll devices. I don't know what you call these. I'm familiar with the pumpkin bombs, but I'm not familiar with the pumpkin slicers or whatever that he's throwing out. And we get that little ballet around all of them, but one of them does manage to nick Spider-Man's forearm. And then strangely enough, Aunt May invites Norman Osborn over to Thanksgiving dinner, which sort of makes sense, I guess, if Harry is Peter's roommate, but it still seems a little like a contrivance. And I guess it's like Thanksgiving dinner is immediately after the whole fight in the burning building, right?
How come nobody's put together that every time Norman Osborn has a problem, they end up dead? Army guys, the people on his board, the guy who said we need to go back to the beginning. They're all dead. Every single one of them are dead. Bring a squad car by. That's all I'm saying.
Strangely, the same thing was true about all the enemies of Captain Kangaroo, but nobody dared speak up while he was still alive.
I know.
And then they came for me.
I know.
Whatever happened to Mr. Green Jeans? Nobody talks about Mr. Green Jeans anymore, do they?
Why are there ping pong balls everywhere?
The murder scene. There are ping pong balls and a sock puppet.
There's so many people that are going, I don't even know what they're talking about right now.
But anyway, it's Thanksgiving dinner.
ahead.
Thanksgiving dinner, and Norman seems to really figure out pretty easily that Peter Parker is Spider-Man based on a cut on his forearm. Did that seem a little too easy to you guys?
Well, yeah, but it's that's the kind of movie this is that's how he's going to find out that he's Spider-Man. That's how it works.
I mean, there's not even a kind of.
I think it would have been better if he could still smell the fumes of smoke from that incinerated building they were in a mere minutes ago on both of their hair and clothes. I mean, I build a campfire in the yard. I can smell it 3 days later.
How often do you sit there and just go, how are you conveying that in film language, Bruce?
It's like, whoo, what smells like a burning house in here? Is it Norman or is it Peter? I think it's both of them. May says that line, and then the two of them go, what? You mean you? You mean you? Oh, put them up.
Her face ping-pongs back and forth between the two of them, and she throws up her hand, going, I don't know.
Why did you carve the turkey, Mr. Osborn?
And I got to tell you that his joke when he walks into the room kills the room. Like I had to beat a woman with a stick to get this can of cranberries. They're like, "Oh, you are delightful, Peter."
And he's like, "No, for real."
That's why I smell the way I do.
But then, after putting 2 and 2 together, the Green Goblin does the most evil thing anyone can do, and he attacks Aunt May. I mean, poor sweet old Aunt May. Why doesn't he go after Mary Jane right from the get-go. Poor Aunt May.
Here's the thing, man. Old ladies is always going to be easy pickings, man. You can just get in there and just, kick down an old lady. It doesn't matter.
And this
something tells me that Granny Clampett from the Beverly Hillbillies could have taken Norman Osborn.
There is.
Yes.
And also, this is the most Raimi we get in this movie to me, where he busts in through the window and he goes, "Say the rest of it, say the rest of it." And she goes, "From evil."
Oh, it's so good. So cornerly good that it is good, just man. Like, yeah, it is that kind of.
From the best I can tell, all he did was like frightened her into the hospital. Like, I can't tell that he actually hit her or anything.
I'm telling you, man, look back at the old comics. A good frighten would put that woman in a coma for at least 3 or 4 weeks.
Oh, that's how the kid lost his hair in the peanut butter solution. It was harem scarum. So I guess it does happen.
Hell, man, you're talking about an age where someone in a very popular sci-fi movie died of a broken heart after she gave birth to twins.
That's true. All I got to think is there comes a point where you've seen everything and you're like, I've seen scarier. You want to kill me? Big whoop. What? I've got 6-7 months at the most left anyway. You're just saving me some time here, buddy. But she's in the hospital. And Mary Jane, I guess, admits to to Harry Osborn that she kind of has a crush on Spider-Man. And, Harry knows because he's Peter's best friend that Peter's had this longtime crush. And Harry kind of lets Norman Osborn know about this whole thing. And with Aunt May in the hospital, Norman goes after Mary Jane to really kind of build up the big finish on this movie, right?
Yeah, but I mean, here's the thing. Has anyone... It's such a weird dichotomy where she's just like, hey, so this guy in like a mask and stuff, he's like super hot. I mean, like he saved me from a thing and like he twice. So he did a thing, and so he might be ugly from the nose upwards, but whatever.
Does he? So when you
Isn't
guys
that the purest love, blind love?
When you guys see her on top of that bridge, do you think they're going to do the Gwen Stacy thing with her?
It felt so obvious to me.
I mean, first off, the fact that it's the Gwen Stacy thing bothered me back then. Like, if you want to do the Gwen Stacy thing, why don't you just have Gwen Stacy? I mean, there's no reason you have to have Mary Jane Watson in this movie if you want Gwen Stacy.
It's true.
Because, I mean, they bring Gwen in a really weird way in the third movie. But there's a part of me that wondered, though, if they would kill her. I guess that's what you're going for. I kind of thought maybe that would happen. But because it's Mary Jane, she couldn't die. If it was Gwen, she could die, But I know that when it came time to make the sequels, that some people in the production probably wished they had killed off Mary Jane because the actress made a lot of waves behind the scenes, from what I understand.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and here's the thing, too, is that like Sam Raimi has gone on record many a time of like he's fans of some bits of Spider-Man. He's not like I'm in for a penny, in for a pound with Spider-Man. Right. He likes some things of it, but he's just like Venom, hate Venom. I don't want to have Venom in there, but they said, look, Venom is the most popular thing we got rolling right now. We are shoving Venom in this, whether you like it or not. And obviously, for like the fourth one, he had said that he wanted to do, a Vulture with John Malkovich's Vulture, which would have been
awesome. Of course, I guess now maybe Michael Keaton's going to be our Vulture. We'll have to wait and see on that.
I sure hope so.
I'm down for that, but I mean,
and he just break out the old Birdman costume. He's got it.
But it was always kind of a like pick and choose your own. What he cherry picked from what he liked out of the thing for Raimi. He was just like, I like this bit, but this other stuff, no, thank you. Which can help, but certainly hurt too.
Well, let's talk about Kirsten Dunst. I think if you ask me in general, I'm going to say I'm not a big fan of Kirsten Dunst. I haven't seen a ton of stuff she's in, though. I like Bring It On good enough. I haven't seen some of the smaller stuff she's been in. But if asked, my gut feeling is to say I don't like her. But I thought she was okay as Mary Jane.
I didn't think there
was anything bad about her performance.
I like her well enough. I liked her. I liked her more this time than I had remembered liking her previously. I think this is probably... this is going to get misogynist. She looks the best that she's looked. I think at this point.
Let me go worse.
because I've never been like a huge fan, but I'm like I don't know, like I like her costumes. I like the way that they colored her hair and everything. But she looks as good as she could possibly look in these. And Sean, go with what I know you're going with.
Okay, so here it goes. Right. So I hated Kirsten Dunst. I hated her forever. I think she's a terrible actress until she's in Fargo season 2. She's great in Fargo season 2. And so this is the first time I'd ever seen Kirsten Dunst where I was giving her the benefit of the doubt ever. Because she does nothing for me at all. I think that it was a huge shame to have her in such a huge vehicle. And then it made it even worse where you replace her with one of the prettiest girls like ever in Hollywood ever. And
exactly.
It's so going back to this, I fully expected like little vampire teeth, weird looking blonde girl to be slightly off, and I was right. I mean, she's not, to me, she's just so unattractive to me.
But Mary Jane should be the girl next door, so I could go with the unattractive part. I mean, I'm not calling her unattractive. I mean, I could go with her no matter what she looked like.
She looked like a normal girl of that age.
Well,
I just didn't want her to come across. I just didn't want her to come across on the screen the way I perceived her behind the scenes, because after the first movie was a massive hit, suddenly she doesn't like Tobey Maguire, and she is just very actively lobbying to get him replaced. And we know that with the superhero franchise, replacing the superhero probably is a little tougher to pull off than replacing his girlfriend, right?
Yes. Let me tell you something about this movie also, watching it with Lindsay yesterday. She works in the movie business as well. And Lindsay's my girlfriend, for those of you who don't know. She's worked in costumes. She works in hair and makeup. She's worked in hair and makeup before. She absolutely despises the hair that has been done in this movie. She thinks it is so ridiculous and awful. And somebody, I think it was Adam, even said that you like that they colored her hair. She thinks it is absolutely awful and looks so ridiculous. And she thinks everyone's
I assumed it was a wig.
Oh, it does look ridiculous. Don't get me wrong. I mean,
I just assumed it was a wig because it didn't look that real to me.
It felt like it went with the whole overall comic aesthetic of the whole thing.
Uh-huh.
I think that's what I'm kind of get at when I say that it looks good, is that it feels like it's in this comic book world that Raimi's putting us in.
She kept pointing out how bad the hair was just over and over and over again in this movie.
But at least, and the weird thing, if we're going to talk hair, is by the time we get to the third movie in this, they have the natural blonde playing the redhead, the natural redhead playing the blonde. We get like the world turned inside out between Gwen and Mary Jane. It gets real convoluted by then. Thank goodness we're not reviewing Spider-Man 3 tonight.
Yeah.
Or
are we? Oh, snap. Guess what, Bruce? We got a surprise review for you that you're doing that you didn't.
Review.
At the big showdown, the big showdown with the tram and with Mary Jane, and they do the death of Gwen Stacy, or the night Gwen Stacy died. They sort of redo that issue of the comics. Of course, they do it a little bit differently, but when all the New Yorkers show up and start pelting Green Goblin with garbage and rocks and stuff, and there's the tugboat captain down there that on the bullhorn tells Spider-Man, "We'll catch her for you," or something like that. That tugboat captain has made some of the finest late 70s, early 80s adult movies, believe it or not. Look him up on IMDb and see what you can find out.
Is he just credited as tugboat captain?
I don't know. I think he's probably just tugboat captain, but he was in a movie about Debbie in a city in Texas. And I think he was in some of the sequels to that. But yeah, the guy is one of those weird anomalies that people don't think exists, but he had this dual career of doing both mainstream and not quite mainstream movies for about 15 years.
Wow, good for that guy. Is his nickname Tugger?
I don't know, but by the looks of him as a tugboat captain, I'm sure that the actresses were underpaid.
I can't find tugboat.
He's
captain.
Literally looking it up right now.
I'm trying to find tugboat man. Keep talking.
Well,
Lucy Lawless was in this. I forgot about that.
Oh,
she
yeah,
does
she's
have
the
a nice little.
yeah.
Of course, she back. In
you're
the
talking
day.
about Xena?
Yeah.
Yeah. The weird part too is that there is a person credited as Eddie Brock in this movie as well. I'm guessing that
was not Topher Grace that I could tell.
It was not, and I'm guessing because I didn't see him in the movie, but I'm guessing he had to have been working at the Daily Bugle.
Because when I think Brock, I think of skinny little dudes who.
Oh my God, that's the worst casting ever. Just awful.
Anyway, but I like the big kind of battle scene at the end. I mean, it's a little bit, and again, this is another thing that kind of screams Raimi kind of style and everything. I like what he does with it, and again, with the early kind of 2000s CGI, could be better, but could be a lot worse. That's for sure.
Oh well, I think it's terrible, but I think it works because it's Raimi. If it's somebody who doesn't have a wink and a nod with their
sensibility to it, yeah.
Right, then it doesn't work, but it does for him.
Oh, I'm almost getting the name of that guy. Keep talking just a little bit more. It's not Macy Gray.
It's not Macy Gray.
It's Robert Kerman. His name is Robert Kerman, but he was also known as adult film star Arbola.
Arbola.
Yeah, he's from Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, and he was in that Debbie movie I told you about, as well as, let's see, how many other movies? He was one of the most prolific male stars in what is known as the golden age of porn, which is something that probably doesn't sound right.
It's the golden age, back when things were glorious.
Boy, they sure don't make
He
them
is
like
in
that
the
anymore.
AVN Hall of Fame, whatever that is.
Of course he is. Celebrated in
not
Las
gonna
Vegas
click
every
on
year.
any
I
of
don't
those
know that.
links.
What are you talking about?
Guess he was also in Cannibal Holocaust.
Oh, nice. So he's got a great pedigree of movies.
And then he was
Cannibal
on Hill Street
Holocaust.
Blues and Simon and Simon. So enough of the talk
Nice.
about Kerman, Robert Kerman.
Nice. I wonder if he has a favorite Simon brother. I do.
Oh, man, I guess it's time to wrap this
Yeah,
one up,
so
guys.
let's get down to it. There are a lot of people in this movie, and we got to find out how at least one of them relates back to the most magnanimous man in Hollywood history, Sylvester Stallone.
Oh, thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement.
Oh, okay.
Benny the Jet Urquidez plays the role of Mugger in Spider-Man. And unless you're a massive fan of kickboxing, you don't recognize that name. Because Benny the Jet Urquidez was the kickboxing champion of the world for 27 years.
Wow, that's a long time.
Mighty long time. The Jet also the Jet is also one of those guys that he looks super old, but instead, I'm sorry, let me start over. The Jet is also one of those guys that's super old, but instead of looking super old, he just looks weird because he eats right, works out every day, and doesn't drink or smoke. If this makes sense to you, he looks like a really, really old 30-year-old. All right, so he got into full contact karate as a career in 1974, which seems like something someone with no real job says. If I'm at a party or something and ask what they do for a living, if full contact karate comes up, I'm going to assume they're lying to me. But listen to this list of the Jets' accomplishments: over 200 wins, no losses, 63 title defenses, 57 knockouts. He's the only fighter to retain 6 world titles in 5 different weight divisions for 24 years. And he returned to kickboxing in 1993 at the age of 42. Woo. And he beat the hell out of a 25-year-old for the World Light Middleweight Championship. Now he's retired from kickboxing because he's about 97 years old. And he mostly trains actors how to look like they know how to fight. He does stunts as well as occasionally acts in movies. And Dave Mustaine from Megadeth is one of his students. I love the thought of Dave Mustaine kickboxing with a bunch of children, kicking them senseless and raising his arms over his head in victory. But the Jets' brush with greatness happened in 1989 when he had an uncredited role in the most Stallone movie ever made, Tango and Cash. Weird bit of trivia about that movie. Terry Hatcher, who plays Stallone's sister in the movie, got the part because the filmmakers wanted someone who looked like Stallone. So they cast Terry Hatcher. Because the filmmakers thought that Terry Hatcher, who you may know from Desperate Housewives and Adventures of Lois and Clark, looked like Sylvester Stallone. Basically, the only thing these two people have in common is that they're both white. That's like casting Danny DeVito to play Kiefer Sutherland's dad.
Watch that.
It's stupid. But there you have it, HMPers, this week's Stallone connection. Now, Adam and Bruce, let's review this movie so we can argue about the ratings of Raimi's first Spider-Man movie.
And unlike Stallone, Hatcher's breasts are natural, if Seinfeld is to be believed.
And they're spectacular.
And they're spectacular.
So let's get down to it. Bruce, what is your Robin rating for Spider-Man from 2002?
Well, I was filled with joy and Silver Age nostalgia for the first hour of this movie. But then, like I said, it became a little subdued as we start to get through the necessary beats to set up a finale that was probably a little less impactful for me than it was intended to be. But having said that, I think that it's hard. I honestly, honest to goodness, taking the movie as a whole, I think it's very, very difficult not to enjoy this movie. It was definitely a crowd pleaser in 2002, and I think it still holds up today. So I'm going to give it a Tim Drake.
Very good. Mr. Keenan, what we got?
This movie is so weird. it feels like a Frankenstein monster of superhero movies. And on top of that, it's the weird bridge between the way that superhero movies used to be made and the way that they're made now. I enjoy this movie. I did not enjoy it nearly as much as I thought I was going to because I'm a huge Rami fan and I like a lot of the people in this movie, save Kirsten Dunst. I think she's awful. She's really bad.
How do you really feel?
You know, I already
I
told
do
you.
know.
I already told you. So I am going to give it a what's Batman's kid's name?
Damian Wayne.
Damian Wayne, thank you. It's a Damian Wayne.
Just in case.
Man, I've not thought about comic books in like 3 weeks. So sorry.
I'm gonna go with Bruce here. I'm going Tim Drake on this. It's not spectacular. Maybe it's not quite amazing.
Is it amazing?
No, but it is Peter Parker, which is weird. I don't know why, but no, it's it's okay. I like this movie well enough. I think it goes up to the Tim Drake just upon a count of time, really, because you can't watch a movie that was made in 2002 today and then kind of hold it to the same standards that you would hold a Captain America movie or this upcoming Spider-Man movie, which everybody is excited for, and for darn good reason. Looks like we're going to have a Spider-Man who actually looks like he's supposed to be appropriate high school age. What a weird thought. And I hope he stays that way for a long time, Marvel. We can CGI people and stuff. We've seen it happen. Let's make this kid... I want him at least 16 for at least 4 years. Let's make this happen.
4 years?
There are injections you can give him to suppress his gonadotropins to make that happen.
Yeah, some coffee and cigarettes, if nothing else. I mean, that's in the budget. Why not give him some of that? So, but do that. But, I mean, I liked it well enough. Willem Dafoe is enough kind of scenery chewing to get me to like what he's doing. And of course, it's made fun of often, but the upside down kiss is an iconic thing. It was done really well. It looks cool, and it feels like a comic, and it's nice. And I like what Raimi does with the Spider-Man movies. They're not perfect, but man, for the time that they were at and everything, what they brought and really helped usher in. I think without these movies, we wouldn't be where we are with comic book movies right now. So I think everybody owes a large debt of gratitude to them. So there you go. All right, that is it, everybody. Next week, we're diving a little bit more back. We reviewed the first Blade movie way back in the early days of HMP. Yeah. So we're finally getting around to the Guillermo del Toro sequel, Blade 2, and we'll be talking about that next week. Until then, Bruce, where can we find more of your work on the internet this week, sir?
Just go to chubbywizard.com or search for Chubby Wizard on your favorite podcast listening client. It's all there. We talk a whole bunch of new comic books from this week, and then we also run down a little bit of Winds of Winter, the big Game of Thrones finale this week.
Dang.
I hear it was all just party balloons on that show, was right?
Yep.
Okay.
More or less.
Very good. Mr. Keenan.
You can find me at the Preacher Podcast. I'll actually be on it this week. Which is gonna be I know it. Or you can reach me at Hero Movie Sean on Twitter.
Excellent. And, of course, my other show, The Film Find, at thefilmfind.com. New release reviews every single week. We got the BFG. We've got the new Purge movie. And I forget the other one that I saw and already forgot because it was just kind of mediocre. Tarzan. That's what it was.
Wow, that's bad.
So we'll be watching those and, of course, more. So thefilmfind.com, iTunes, all those other places. And that is it, everybody. Until next week when we talk Blade 2 for Sean Keenan, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Portrais. Stay super, everybody.
Goodbye, Marty and Evie.